Okay, welcome back. It's day three without Andy, but luckily for everybody, there'll be a day next week for that Andy will be back. We'll get to hear his recount of how his vacation went, his time off, his much deserved time off, as much as I give him crap for it, his much deserved time off because I'm going to be taking time off the week after next. So it's all good on that front for Andy. We'll hear some of his adventures, I'm sure, talk about his short shorts and all that other fun stuff. So, a couple things to get into today, but I do want to start off with I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the 3x7 today, so we'll see because I have about four topics that I kind of want to get into, but I'll do it. I'll see how it goes with this opening little segment. Look, yesterday was D-Day, and so I think it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. It's a anything with a round or number or five is a good number to get to, but really 80 years since this really tremendous event that changed the course of history on a lot of fronts. World War II was obviously so much different than the world we live in today. The military capabilities and the way we fight and just the type of conflicts that we have today. Um, it was just the way it in a lot of respects it feels still new or still recent, but 80 years is a really long time, and the advances in the way the world has evolved, the way the militaries fight now, it's just so different in many ways. But then in some ways, it's still very much war is war. It's hell. It sucks. That's why I don't think when we ever hear things about a civil war in the United States, I don't think we'll ever get to that point because I think the people who understand war know that nobody wants to go through that. And despite how divisive things may sound, it's really just a small few people on the internet. And the way to do things in combat and to do things in war, just it would be unconscionable for this country to go through. That's neither here nor there. I mean, the D-Day was just such a monumental event, and I had a lot of emotion yesterday when I was watching some of the ceremonies, when I was watching some of the still living members of that generation who went back to Normandy, and I think I was also struck by how much the French people just truly appreciate the sacrifices of all those individuals who gave their lives and stormed those beaches, climbed those cliffs, dropped behind enemy lines to secure their freedom. And you can see it there every minute of those interactions between even the young kids and these individuals who are 100 years old, upper 90s, 100 years old. And it's really like it really does make it hit home in a lot of levels. And if you didn't come away with that, just go back and watch some more of it because I do think it's so important to understand. Now, look, um, you, you know, there's a lot that has occurred, obviously, in many ways since that time. That we can look back and say the post-war years, set this country up for where we may be today, and the way our capitalist system is. But the reality is, without the sacrifices of those men who stormed those beaches and climbed those cliffs and dropped behind those enemy lines, it would be a much different world we live in today. And I think those sacrifices just shouldn't be overlooked. And I know we get further away. There are not as many of a generation anymore, but it is just so important to remember those sacrifices. And I think we had a lot of that after 9/11 as well. There was a lot of that courage, support. There's a lot of that togetherness that comes through in those moments. And I just think it's important to remember those and to reflect upon those and do that, take that away. So I wanted to start a little bit on that today and just call that out. I think Annie and I have both very strong memories of this. My father-in-law, well, my in-laws just recently returned from a trip to Europe, and one of the things they went to was Normandy, and they just recalled, the French people and just the appreciation and understanding of those sacrifices. And so I don't think we should lose sight of that ever. I mean, this country is built on the sacrifices of the men and women and the families who served in the military, who give service, and we talked about this on Memorial Day. But despite the differences sometimes, and again, despite what disagreements I may have with certain individuals or groups, I gave my time, my service to the country so that people could do that, and I think that can't be lost. It shouldn't be lost. And there are a lot of people who've done that, and there's just so much emotion around those events. So if you're not usually like, oh, D-Day, here we go again, type of thing, it is important to remember those times, and it is important to remember those sacrifices. So I ask that everyone just take a minute, go back, read a story, understand, the people who were behind that, and understand that when you go to Europe, there are graveyards filled with American soldiers, and those graveyards are, or those cemeteries. I mean, those are, national monuments in those countries, and because they appreciate what this country did. And I think it's just so important when you think about United States leadership around the world. It's not a token phrase. I mean, it's not like we come to the rescue. It's that people appreciate the sacrifices that we're willing to give. And I think we should remember that when we fight over aid to this country or that country, we have much. And I do think it's important that we give as well. And if you're not, that's fine. We can disagree over that. But there are men and women and there are families who sacrifice for that. And I do think it's important to remember that and the freedoms that the world should enjoy, not just here in the United States. So, all right, let's get into a couple things. I do have three topics to go through. I don't know if I'm going to get through the 7 minutes on each of them, but I'm going to start. So I'm hitting the first time window now. Look, I talked about the Acolyte on Wednesday. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good first two episodes. I've read some people who've seen the first four episodes, and I'm tempering all expectations. I was taken away a little bit by the Rotten Tomatoes score here, uh, and what I guess the Acolyte is getting, and it's basically getting somewhere in the neighborhood of in the high 80s, low 90s, um, um, high 80s, low 90s. Rotten Tomatoes score, and so that's like a certified fresh, I would guess, that they're saying. But then they're also then saying that it's not the critics, but the individuals, the audience score is at like under 50% with a lot of negative reviews. And I'm really struggling with this because again, I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was great. But I thought it was starting to tell the story of a different part of the Star Wars universe. And I think this is just where, like, some people are just never going to be happy with it, right? Some people are just never going to understand or give anybody the credit for what they need to do with some of these stories. They have in their mind what they want to see and what they believe to see, and I just you're never going to meet those expectations. I think it did tell a really good story. I think it set up a really good season, and I guess it is going to be eight episodes, so we've still got a lot to go. There's just a lot to explore in this area. And I think one of the biggest complaints I heard was like the DEI complaint. And look, this is a tiresome complaint, everyone. Like, eh, I get the argument against I get where people are saying, hey, look, it's being force fed down us. We have to do all this training. We have to make sure that our hiring practices are this. And there's the belief that people are the more qualified people are not hired because they have to have certain percentages of stuff. Work in a corporation, work and see how that stuff works before you start really throwing stones at things. But look, of all things that DEI um, this just cracks me up because of all places where DEI it should just not even be a thing is in outer space, in the universe, in the in the galaxy far, far away. I mean, and what are you really complaining about? I mean, you want more white men? I mean, you want more Anakin, Obi-Wan, Palpatine, Dooku? Is that what you want? I mean, look, there was some really good characters there. Saul, I think, is a really good character. The character Jord is a little wonky, but there's some development there. Osha is a really good character. I mean, all of these characters are really good. And yeah, you may say, "Well, I wanted to see more Carrie Ann Moss," and look, who doesn't want to see that, right? But but there's going to be probably more to go with that. This is outer space, aliens, different cultures, different races. I'm just not sure what you're really complaining about. They didn't force it down anybody's throat. They didn't make you see things that you didn't want to see. They told characters for interesting stories and perspectives for different individuals, all with different backgrounds, all from different planets, and who all don't look the same. So I'm really struggling with this. And then again, if that's the biggest complaint, great. I mean, I heard bad writing and stuff. Like, look, everyone, like, just give it a break. I mean, did you like every comic book? Did you like every video game? Did you like every thing? No, but can't you just sit back and enjoy what the universe are trying to expand out to and what they're trying to build out to? And that's where I just really say, I mean, give it a break. If you don't like it, don't watch it. That's the freedom, right? The freedom we all enjoy today. You don't have to watch it. But now I just pulled up Rotten Tomatoes and it looks like it is even worse, 27%. Um, and so I just can't. It is what it is. You're not going to please everybody, but they're telling stories. If you look at the Star Wars television shows, so you have Mandalorian for the first two seasons, really good. Third season really sucked. You had Obi-Wan, which the first two episodes of Obi-Wan I thought were really good. Even the third episode of Obi-Wan was really good, and then it dropped off. Though that fight scene at the end was really good, just the way they wrapped up Obi-Wan was just, I think it was just a big miss. And I feel terrible because Obi-Wan's like, even Ewan McGregor is one of my favorite people, one of my favorite characters, and I think he played that role so well, and it just was a dud. Yet Ahsoka, which I think just again for the people who loved Rebels, they're never gonna like the live action part, no matter how many people you put in there. It just wasn't gonna fly with everybody, and I think the story did miss on a couple different levels. But I'll watch. I'll continue to watch because I want to see what this is like. That bridge between Jedi and the Force Awakens, and then we had Andor. I think I'm well documented. This is the best, not just Star Wars show, but one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. It told a great story, excellently written, and everything around there. Book of Boba Fett, again, another hard miss. Tried to tell a story about the Sand People. I think it just missed. There's just a lot. I mean, I guess Book of Boba Fett was really episode season three of Mandalorian. That's the big joke, right? But look, I mean, you compare all these things. I think I would put this one behind the opening ones. I mean, I would put it third. I would go Andor, Mandalorian seasons one and two, and then I'd put it right there. And look, I'm interested to learn more about this place. So there you go. There's 7 minutes, my opening segment on backlash. I guess I'm hearing from some of the Acolyte stuff. So, all right, let me just reset here. I'm going back to 7 minutes, going back in on the next thing. Yesterday, there was a big news announcement. This is, I guess, a pseudo sports check in. Big news announcements about coaches and the Los Angeles Lakers. There's this JJ Redick story for so long about JJ Redick, who is a media member now, a former player. He's a podcaster, and just like all these podcasters, we like to say some crazy things on there to get attention to our podcast. He's got one with LeBron James. And so there was a lot of thought that JJ Redick was going to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. this just was fucking asinine. Like the guy, I mean, yeah, he may be have some hot takes on TV or on his podcast, and he may have some smart commentary um, as an on air personality. But he like, why would you even consider him to be a head coach? I mean, do you remember Jeff Saturday for the Indianapolis Colts? No head coaching experience or very little head coaching experience, and they just thought he'd be really good in the room. JJ Reddick, similarly, like coaching high school basketball is not the same thing as coaching it. Podcasting with LeBron James is not the same thing as coaching LeBron James. I mean, and not to mention, the word came out that on the all defensive team, all NBA defensive team, he didn't even vote Anthony Davis, who's the might be the best player on the Lakers, anywhere on the top 10 spots. So look, I mean, it's just asinine to think that he would do it. And so the word came out yesterday. Why would you even offer it to him? I mean, you had real basketball players, Frank Vogel and Darvin Ham, who couldn't survive in LA. What makes you think JJ Redick is just because he can pod afterwards with LeBron about the game, and LeBron can say politically correct things or whatever. But nonetheless, so that came out yesterday that, in fact, that must have been a smokescreen. It was a pretty good smokescreen because a lot of people were already, you know, putting the nameplate on the desk in Los Angeles. But it came out yesterday that the head coach from UConn, Mr. Hurley, who's the two-time or back-to-back national championships at UConn, has a strong chance to make a run for a three-peat, which hasn't been done in years in the NCAAs. He has a good chance now that he might be the coach of the Lakers, and they, of course, are dropping all of these things. This is interesting. I mean, in so many ways, we've seen so many college coaches come to the NBA and they just can't take it because what made them good in college, they were good. They were very disciplined. They, stuck to the fundamentals. They ran set plays. They did a lot of good coaching, and the head coach has a lot of power in the not just on the court, but who's he recruiting? He doesn't have, while he has a recruiting coordinator and all these other things, Dan Hurley's, or he's the one making um, the ultimate decisions and who to offer and how they're playing. And so you go to the NBA, not only are you not making the most money on your team, you have guys who've been in the league for, in LeBron James' case, he's pushing 40. You have MVPs, NBA champions. You have rookie of the years. You have all these things on an NBA team, and all these personalities. And are you going to come in and try to instill, fundamental basketball to guys who are used to doing isolations or one on ones or or just doing one cut and then trying to get the ball and drive in. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I mean, he did remark a little bit that he wanted to bring a youth move. He wanted a team that was young so that he could mold them. Does that, I mean, fly in contradiction to what LeBron James is there? I mean, he's pushing 40. Anthony Davis has been unhealthy. They don't have a lot of draft picks in the coming years. I mean, what's going to happen here? And I think this is just a delicate balance. As on one end, you want to be test yourself against the best. The NBA is the best. You want to test yourself there, but I mean, even though they're going to offer him a lot of money, I mean, you're the king of your kingdom at UConn. I mean, isn't that good enough? I don't know. So I'll be watching this. I'm sure something will have to happen over the next day or two because not only do the Lakers want to get this buttoned up, but UConn. I mean, the transfer portal is huge right now. So I'm sure those kids heard the stories and they started going, "Oh shit, I need to get in the portal. I'm not going to stay here in UConn if I'm going to." I only came here for Hurley. If he's gone, I need to be gone too. And so I'm sure UConn's going to want to say we need to lock this down so we can keep our players, or at least get another coach on, so that that new coach can say, keep all those kids from leaving in the transfer portal. So really, really interesting times, not just for Mr. Hurley, but you also, I mean, the Lakers want to get this done, and UConn needs to get this done in a pretty easy, quick way, and make sure this happens sooner rather than later. Okay, so I got about 40 seconds left on the clock. I'm going to wrap up that discussion because otherwise I'd just be rambling. I'm going to reset ourselves, and I'm going to go to my last topic. I teased it a little bit last time at the end of the last podcast. Stupid movies I love. So I'm going to, okay, I don't want to confuse this with parody movies. This is like just really just stupid movies. I mean, just asinine movies. But I love them. I'll rewatch them no matter what. So let me just make the distinction. Like a parody movie, these are the ones, these are like Airplane, Naked Gun, Hot Shots Part 2. You got all those, like Not Another Teen Movie. Look, everyone, if you haven't seen Not Another Teen Movie, I need you to go back and watch it. You'll see Chris Evans at the early start of his career. So many good lines in that movie, so many good references to those 80s teen movies, Andy's Breakfast Club, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Varsity Blues in the 90s. You start getting into some of that. There are so many good things in there. And I could definitely rewatch that. Airplane, Top Shot, or Hot, I'm sorry, I said Hot Shots, but Top Secret. This is another one of those movies. So when we were going to Germany in 1983, we spent a couple days in a hotel. We had to we sold our house and we're moving, and so we were at we were flying out. So we stayed a couple days at the Marriott Hotel right outside of Dulles, and they had HBO there, which again was great. But that was like Mommy Dearest was one of the shows on, and I was like, that freaked me out. That show freaked me out. But there's also Top Secret with Val Kilmer, early Val Kilmer. Great movie. If you haven't seen that, that's a great movie to go back to. But these are stupid movies I love, and this is just where it's not deliberately trying to be a parody on any other sort of genre of anything, but things that just are like just so over the top, so crazy, just wild and outrageous. So, but again, not something that is widely viewed or widely loved or whatnot. So I'm going to give you four. um, so I'm going to start with a really recent one, and my son turned me on to this one. Um, Ricky Stannicky, and this is with John Cena. Um, Zach Efron's also in it, but the premise is really simple. When these kids were growing up, they had to blame somebody for some of their misdeeds that happened, and so they created a kid named Ricky Stannicky. And whenever something bad happened, or whenever they needed to make excuse later in life with their wives or something, to go hang out with the boys, they would say Ricky's got a problem or something, and they need to go connect with him, or Ricky's getting married or something. So they create this character, and the in the opening of the movie is they use him to go to Atlantic City and gamble. But during that time, one of the lead characters' wives, who's pregnant, starts delivering, so they missed the delivery, because they didn't have their phones on them, and so now they're all pissed at Ricky. All the wives are pissed at Ricky, so they demand to see Ricky, and so they have to figure out how to do this. So during their trip to Atlantic City, they met John Cena's character, who's just this terrible actor who's just trying to do anything, and he has so many awkward moments about like what he's doing to make ends meet, and some of the comedy shows that he does. Probably even too rough for this podcast, but it's so stupid. But the things that are said in that movie, I don't know how they were able to make the movie, but they did. It's good. I would recommend watching it. It's on Amazon, for anybody out there, and who wants to watch it. Then I got three more. Fired Up. Okay, so this is early. I think this is an aughts movie. Um, but what this is these are two guys. This is a high school movie, and what it is yeah, it's 2009. It's two football stars who they don't want to go to their summer camp, right? Football summer training and stuff. So in order to get out of it, they enroll at a cheerleading camp instead, and they convince the football coach this is actually going to make them better. Of course, all the cheer and they convince the cheerleading coach they should go with their high school cheerleading team. Of course, who all know these boys and realize that um, it's just utterly preposterous. There's the conflict between one of them and the head cheerleader, who, of course, at the end they get romantically involved. But there are so many good things in this movie. Again, probably doesn't get made in today's world, but nonetheless, so many good characters in this movie. There's a lot of big names in here, or not like huge names, but names that you know when you see them, you're like, "Oh, I know that person. I know that person. I know that person." And again, there's just some very classic scenes out of this one. I would definitely recommend Fired Up to get out there. Every time I've mentioned it to people, there'll always be one person like, "Oh yeah, I saw that movie," and you're like, "Yes, let's go." Okay, third stupid movie that I love, Euro Trip. And I used to work with a guy back in the army, and he and I we watched this movie like a countless times. It is unbelievable. This is great. This is again the finishing two high school friends. They are at the end of at the end of graduation, they're going to go to Europe and travel around Europe, and of course, one of the great scenes is in the beginning. One of the characters, his girlfriend breaks up with him, and the way and then they go to this party, and Matt Damon is in this he does a cameo as the lead singer of this punk band. Basically, he sings this song Scotty doesn't know, and Scotty's the character of the name. But basically, he's telling him how he's cheated with his girlfriend over the last several months, and Scotty doesn't know that Veronica and I. Yeah, it was great. So if you ever go to YouTube, just Google Scotty doesn't know in Eurotrip. It's great. There's also great scenes all over Europe. There's this great exchange about what's happening in. Oh my gosh, the timer is gone. I have to. I can't stop. I got to continue just for this couple minutes here. But there's a great scene about they have 75 cents and they're in Bratislava, and like what do they get? And they get this great luxury thing. So definitely watch Euro Trip. The other one I would just mention, I don't have a lot of time for. This is Road Trip, not to be confused. This is going from um, to visit somebody, and oh, they're going on a road trip. It's just for shenanigans. Just a little, of course, all crazy. A lot of good faces in that movie as well. But okay, so there's those ones. Ricky Stannicky, recent one, Fired Up, Euro Trip, and Road Trip. Stupid movies I love. They're fun watches. Everyone, you can go through them in like 90 minutes or something. Those are good length movies. So, all right, everyone, that wraps me up for my week of solo efforts without Andy. Hope you enjoy these podcasts. Hope it gave you a little something to chew on, and looking forward to having Andy back next week. But again, thanks to everyone for listening, and I'll catch up with you next time.